Fathers and sons have long been tradition in NASCAR. There's been the Petty family, the Earnhardts, the Elliots, and now for fantasy NASCAR, I'm proud to be part of a new father and son tradition as I welcome in every Friday to preview fantasy NASCAR DraftKings style for you daily players. My son, Sean Engel, Sean has finished first place in 5 times in DraftKings tournaments, in top 5 8 times. And Sean joins us now, and there's going to be a Saturday night race in Texas this week. Sean, that leaves our schedule very open on Sunday. I'm suffering withdrawal already, Sean. There's no Walking Dead on Sunday. We're going to have to wait till October to find out. There's no race on Sunday. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. No Walking Dead, no racing. What am I going to do Sunday, Sean?
Well, I guess you're going to have to fill that void in with either NASCAR races or look for a new show entirely. You know, Game of Thrones is almost back, and I'm certainly looking forward to that. Perhaps maybe you should think about watching that sometime.
All right, I got a lot of catching up to do, but I'm waiting for The Walking Dead to come back till October. Who do you think Negan off? I think maybe it's Aaron or Eugene.
Well, first of all, isn't it kind of a bit of a spoiler alert to say that, considering there may be some people listening who haven't watched the show to that point yet?
Yeah, that's a good point, Sean. That's a good point. I don't want to be a spoiler. Everybody catch up so we can talk about this next week. Good point. But it's not a spoiler to say that Jimmie Johnson is going to win again at Texas. The guy's known as the Texas Tornado. Yeehaw! 6 wins at Texas, and I guess you have to spend up to $10,400, Sean, for Jimmie Johnson just to be able to contend in a tournament.
Well, when it comes to Texas, Jimmie Johnson is probably the first driver that comes to my mind in order to start. In the 5 previous races at Texas, he's won 4 out of the last 5 at the site. His average finish of 8.5 and the fact that he's already 6th fastest in first practice are just additional reasons to pick him up for your lineup this week. He's just trying to really look good. I like the way that he's going to be doing in practice. So I'm going to keep a close watch of him, but I'm likely going to end up starting him anyway.
Yeah, I think everybody's got to start him anyway. It's pretty much a given. How can you possibly even contend in a tournament without him? What about Kyle Busch, though? Coming off the victory, 10,100. Toyota has not won in 10 races at Texas. Can Kyle Busch break the drought for Toyota this week? What do you think, Sean?
Well, I think Kyle Busch is one of my more favorable picks. Busch has spent 72.7% of his overall laps at Texas within the top 15 with an average finish of 12.5. This even includes a top 5 finish in his 3 previous Texas starts. Although Jimmie Johnson has won more and finished better on average compared to Kyle Busch, Busch is a pretty solid pick that's actually a slightly cheaper value in salary compared to Johnson.
Joey Logano does have a win at this track. He's $10,000 on DraftKings, only $400 less than Jimmie Johnson. I can't have both Jimmie Johnson, Kyle Busch, and Logano. What kind of consideration would you give to Logano? Would you consider him over Kyle Busch or Jimmie Johnson? He has won on this track recently.
Logano is a solid pick for Texas, but I can't recommend him as highly as Kyle Busch or Jimmie Johnson this week. He may be a previous winner, like he said, with an average finish of 3.3 within the last 3 spring Texas races, but he also has a pass differential of -14 throughout all of his races combined. His affiliation with Team Penske, who is generally strong on tracks like Texas and Las Vegas a few weeks back, which his teammate Brad Keselowski won, is a big positive, but I just don't see him getting the victory like Kyle Busch or Jimmie Johnson.
All right, Denny Hamlin was in studio with us, and I think he listens to the show. So you better be careful about what you say here. It better be good. Denny Hamlin, 9,100 in DraftKings. He's almost like 13% cheaper than some of these other top options. If you're going to go below 10,000, how much do you like Denny Hamlin, a friend of our program?
I have to admit that I think Hamlin's going to be one of those takes where you really have to watch his practice speeds and starting position before fully choosing him for your lineup. He's kind of like one of those guys where I want to wait and see because he only has 3 top 10 finishes within the previous 6 Texas races, and not even any one of them were in the top 5. So, I mean, Hamlin, I do like his value for 9,100 in terms of all the drivers above 9,000. But I do think, though, that we really should be careful and take a look at where he starts and how he does in the later practices to be sure.
All right, if Denny's listening, is there anything you want to say to him about all the fantasy success he's brought you so far?
But still, I definitely like how successful you've been so far, Denny, and keep up the good work.
All right. Carl Edwards, 9,500, and is a 3-time winner on this track. Is he one of those near locks at under $10,000?
Carl Edwards can be another solid pick to round out a lineup this week at Texas. Since he joined Joe Gibbs Racing last season, he placed 10th and 5th, respectively, in the previous 2 races. He's also currently 21st fastest in first practice as well, which so far is not the best quality for fantasy owners looking to pick him up for their lineups as well. Like Hamlin, I would look and see how he does in later practices to see if he improves. And maybe if he ends up getting a lower starting position, that could be advantageous in order to actually put Edwards in your lineup this week.
Talking to Sean Engel at SeanMan247 on Twitter. SEAN is how the first name is spelled. For those of you who want to follow him and ask him fantasy NASCAR questions. AJ Allmendinger coming off a very strong performance. The price is not booted up yet. AJ Allmendinger's only 6,200, Sean.
Coming off 2 straight top 10 finishes, including a second-place finish at Martinsville last week, Allmendinger's already looking to have a very strong start this season for fantasy owners. And he's even had a good fantasy history in past Texas events, since in the past 4 Texas races, he's always finished higher than when he started. That's something a lot of fantasy owners would really like to have in their lineups, a driver that has really good finish differential. And if you combine that with the low salary of $6,200, he literally is one of the best bargains you can find this week.
How about using both of the Dillon brothers, Austin and Ty Dillon, big fantasy players, big listeners on this channel. Austin, a friend of the program as well, like Denny Hamlin. Austin, 7,800. Ty is 6,300. Look, we're doing father and son here. Why don't we get these 2 brothers in the lineup? What do you think?
I definitely agree so. These brothers can be very good picks, and they're both looking to be very strong picks for Texas. Austin is currently having 5 consecutive top 25 finishes, as well as an 11th place finish in the previous Texas race. He even has 4 top 10s this season and showing a good amount of consistency. That's what fantasy owners like. They like consistency. Ty, on the other hand, he has 3 top 25 finishes this season and a really low value salary. So he is definitely one of the best bargains you can get for that price. And Austin has just been so consistent this season with all his top 10 finishes. I certainly think he is most certainly worth his value.
All right, Sean, Brian Vickers is looking very good at 6,400. You never like to see anybody get hurt, but at this point, with the way Vickers is running, do you want Tony Stewart to stay away and maybe go dirt track racing?
Yeah, Tony Stewart could actually go ride into dirt tracks for a week this season because Brian Vickers is looking to be pretty good at Texas. His past 2 races, he's finished within the top 15 or better. And he's riding in Stewart-Haas racing equipment. So he's looking to be very, very good. That's good equipment for him to ride in.
All right, what about if I want to go under 6,000? Real quick, we only got a few seconds left. What about Brian Scott and some drivers to avoid this week?
Well, Brian Scott has been looking pretty good in terms of Texas. I mean, he hasn't raced there a lot of times, but he does have an average finish of 14.0, which for a driver whose value is really, really good to have. And he also ran 66.5% of his laps within the top 15. So he is a really strong pick for this track, bar none, especially with his value. As for drivers to avoid, I'm looking to avoid maybe Casey Mears or Ricky Stenhouse Jr. because their average finishes haven't been looking exactly the best when it comes to this track. And they haven't shown the best of history here either. So, I mean, their past results showcase that they may not be the best picks, especially when you have bargains like Ty Dillon, A.J. Allmendinger, or even Brian Scott that are more worth their value than Casey Mears or Ricky Stenhouse Jr.